My family thinks you're worthless. That was the last sentence she ever gave me. Not in a heated argument. Not face to face with tears and a trembling voice. It was written pen on paper next to the engagement ring I'd nearly bankrupted myself to buy. I'm Justin, 30 years old. I run an auto repair shop in Cleveland. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. Built it from the ground up. Long hours. Grease under my nails. Late nights with invoices and busted engines. It's honest work. The kind of work my old man did for decades. But to her family, I might as well have been invisible. Or worse, replaceable. And I know what you're thinking. It's just a breakup, man. Happens all the time. Yeah. Tell that to the guy who gave 4 years of his life to someone who let her family gut him from the inside out, while she stood by and called it love. If you've ever been told you're not enough, if someone's ever looked you dead in the eye and acted like you were temporary, hit like, drop a comment, smash that subscribe, because I'm not here to vent. I'm here to show you what happens when a man walks away with his pride intact and lets karma finish the job. I grew up in a working-class neighborhood on the east side of Cleveland. My dad worked 35 years at the same manufacturing plant. My mom taught second grade at the local public school. We didn't have much, but we had dignity, respect, a name that meant something. Even if it didn't sit on a plaque or a stock portfolio, they saved just enough to put me through trade school. I remember when I graduated, my dad shook my hand like I'd just landed on the moon. That handshake meant more to me than 1,000 trust funds. Fast forward a few years, 26, sweaty, covered in brake dust. I'm fixing a grill at a buddy's barbecue when she walks in. Chloe. Blonde hair that probably cost more than my truck. Summer dress that never saw dirt. Laugh like she'd never worked a day in her life, but eyes. Eyes that watched me like I was interesting. Like I was different. Like I was real. She was there with a coworker. Someone who knew the host. We talked over cheap beer and ribs. She asked me questions, real ones. About how engines worked, why I loved my job. She said I had an authenticity you don't see anymore. Man, I was cooked. We started dating. Slowly, carefully. I'd never dated someone like her. Country club weekends, Hampton summers, Aspen winters. Meanwhile, I was waking up at 6 a.m. every day to rotate tires and chase invoices. But it worked. Or so I thought. For 4 years, we built something. Or I built. I'm still not sure. We moved in together after a year. I started expanding my garage. Hired 2 guys. Bought new diagnostic tools. Chloe loved it until she didn't. We got engaged the summer I turned 29. She cried when I proposed, said she couldn't wait to marry me. We started planning the wedding. Booked a venue in Hudson Valley she'd dreamed about since high school. Sent out save the dates. Created a joint account for wedding expenses, $60,000 to $1,000 total. I put in half. All hard-earned. Hers, let's just say. Her dad's signature was probably on the wire transfer. But something shifted once the wedding became real. Once her family saw my name on the guest list for life. Edward and Lauren Hawthorne. Her parents. I never stood a chance. Old money. The kind that doesn't just buy houses, it buys opinions, expectations, and the silence of everyone around them. They didn't insult me directly. No, that would have been too obvious. They preferred paper cuts. 1,000 tiny ones. A look exchanged across the dinner table. A suggestion that sounded a lot like an order. A question like, "Are you sure Justin's business can afford the honeymoon?" said with just enough smile to poison the room. But I swallowed it. All of it. Because I loved her. Because when she looked at me, I believed we were bigger than the voices in her ear. I didn't realize how loud those voices had become. The worst moment easy. Dinner at their vacation home. We'd just sat down, white tablecloth, 6 forks, some imported wine I couldn't pronounce, when Edward tossed me his Porsche keys and said, mid-sentence, "It's been making a noise." Mine taking a quick look, like I was a valet, a pit crew, not the man about to marry his daughter. I looked at Chloe. She just shrugged. "You don't want to get your hands dirty, do you?" she said, like it was a joke. Like I didn't smell like oil every damn day for this life we were supposedly building. I missed the whole meal. 40 minutes in the garage. When I came back, everyone was on dessert. Lauren handed me a plate she'd kept warm, like she'd done me some grand favor. Nobody said thank you. Nobody asked how the car was. Nobody even looked up. That night, I told Matt. Matt's been my best friend since high school. Works construction, no filter, no tolerance for BS. He cracked open a soda and said, "Dude, they just called you the help to your face." What's next? Parking their cars when guests arrive. Hunter, my German shepherd, put his head on my lap like he could feel my blood pressure spiking. I said, "She says they're just protective." Matt laughed. "They're not protecting her. They're protecting their status." He wasn't wrong. But love makes you soft. Makes you believe loyalty is enough to melt contempt. I should have known better. There were signs. Of course there were signs. Vanessa, Chloe's older sister, never liked me. Called my garage your little business. Sent Chloe articles about women who married down and regretted it. Introduced her to wealthy friends and said, "It's just networking." And Chloe never shut it down. Just smiled and said, "She means well." Every time I raised a concern, I was told I was too sensitive, too reactive, insecure. But I wasn't insecure. I was being erased, piece by piece. Then came the night that changed everything. I told her that Vanessa crossed a line, that she said Chloe was settling, that she thought I was just a phase. Chloe rolled her eyes and said, "Maybe you're just insecure because you fix cars and my dad builds empires." That moment, it cracked something inside me. The girl who once admired my hands for knowing how to build things now looked at them like they were dirty. But I still wasn't ready to let go. And that was my second mistake. I came home 2 days later, and everything felt off. Quiet, too quiet. Even Hunter didn't bark. He just paced, alert, uneasy. I walked into the kitchen and saw it. A note, 3 neat paragraphs, and the ring. At the bottom, "My family thinks you're worthless." No goodbye, no conversation. Just an execution by letter. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I discovered the next morning. And believe me, you'll want to hear this. The note was 3 paragraphs long. It talked about needing space, about reevaluating compatibility, about how her family had raised concerns about our future together. But only 5 words mattered. "My family thinks you're worthless." I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at the kitchen table, staring at that damn ring, the 3-carat diamond I'd spent months paying off, the one that had made her eyes shine when I proposed. Now it just sat there under the overhead light, catching glints of cold silver, like it was mocking me. The apartment smelled like her perfume still, lavender and something citrusy bright, expensive. lingering. Hunter paced near the door. He kept walking to the bedroom and back again, ears perked like he was waiting for someone who wasn't coming back. And for the first time in years, I couldn't tell if I felt more angry or ashamed. The next morning, something gnawed at me. The timing. The language in the note. The way she'd carefully left her ring next to the knife block like she wanted me to find it. So I called the wedding venue. Brenda, the coordinator, answered. "Hey, Brenda, it's Justin Davies. Just calling to confirm a couple of menu changes for the spring wedding." There was a long pause. Too long. Oh. Mr. Davies. Actually, Chloe called us on Monday. She canceled the booking. Canceled, my voice cracked. But I tried to keep it light. Not postponed. No. Full cancellation. She said there were unforeseen circumstances. The $10,000 deposit is non-refundable. Of course. Of course. I thanked her, hung up, and just sat there. Phone still in hand, staring at nothing. So the note, the breakup. It wasn't a reaction. It wasn't emotional. It was strategic. She'd already pulled the plug before I even knew there was a hole in the boat. I logged into our joint wedding account. $50,000 left. That meant the deposit had already been pulled from our original $60,000 $10K gone, likely used for that venue she'd already canceled. My $30K contribution was now mixed in with hers. The number sitting on the screen wasn't just money anymore. It was humiliation. Proof that I'd been played. So I made one simple move. I withdrew exactly $25,000, half of what remained. Not a cent more. That was my money. The money I'd earned from years under lifted hoods and busted suspensions. From oil-stained knuckles and invoices at 2 a.m. Then I sent her a text. "Chloe, just spoke with the venue. Found out you canceled everything before you even left the note. So let's make this break permanent. I've withdrawn my half of the remaining wedding funds. Seems fair, since there's no wedding. Hope you find the lifestyle you deserve." Then I blocked her number, blocked her sister, blocked her parents. I poured myself a beer at 11 a.m. Something I hadn't done in 10 years. Then I called Matt. He showed up 20 minutes later with a 6-pack and 2 slices of greasy pizza from the gas station down the road. He didn't say anything for a while, just cracked open a can and handed it to me. Hunter perked up the moment Matt walked in, tail thumping against the floor. "She really left the ring?" he asked finally, right next to a note. I said, tossing him the crumpled piece of paper. He read it, whistled. "That's cold. Check this out." I opened my phone and showed him the email from the venue. His eyebrows shot up. "So she canceled before breaking it off?" "Yep." "And didn't tell you?" "Nope." Matt leaned back, shaking his head. "Dude, that's not a break. That's an exit plan." "I know." We sat in silence for a while. "You did the right thing with the money," he said eventually. "Still feels gross." I admitted, "I didn't want it to end like this." Matt shrugged. "Yeah, well, she wanted the lifestyle. Let her parents fund it. You were funding reality. There's a difference." He was right. And still something in me felt like I'd just stepped off a ledge and wasn't sure where the ground was anymore. That night, I walked into the garage behind my apartment. Same spot where I'd kept my tools since college. On the top shelf, wrapped in an old towel, was a metal box, my dad's old toolkit. It still smelled like his aftershave and WD-40. I ran my hand across the lid, dented, rusty in spots, but solid, like him. That box had helped me build the garage. The one Chloe once said was just a starting point. Now, it was the only thing in the room that felt real. I set it down on the workbench, opened it. Inside were the same wrenches, sockets, and pliers I'd learned with my dad's initials carved into the wood handle of the hammer. I wiped off the dust, put each tool back in order, not because I needed them that night, but because I needed to remember where I came from, what built me. Over the next few days, things got quiet. Too quiet. But not for long. On Thursday morning, a voicemail popped up from an unknown number. It was Chloe. "Justin, what on earth do you think you're doing? You took money from our wedding account. You can't just do that. Call me immediately." I didn't call. Then came the emails. Subject: urgent financial error. Subject: mistake you need to fix now. Subject: legal consequences. Each one got more frantic, more manipulative. She said the cancellation wasn't finalized, that I'd stolen from her, that the break was meant to be temporary. Sure, a temporary break with a permanent cancellation and a missing fiancé. It was pathetic. And it was only the beginning. Matt and I met up for lunch at the diner near my shop the next day. He looked over the screenshots I'd printed: texts, emails, banking history. "She's spinning," he said. "She thought you'd sit around waiting. Now she's freaking out." I nodded. "Yeah, but I'm not playing her game." Matt leaned forward. "No, you're not." And that scares the hell out of them. 'Cause for the first time, they're not in control. I looked out the window. The Cleveland sky was gray and heavy. But inside me, something was shifting, hardening. I wasn't the boy fixing grills at barbecues anymore. I wasn't the fiancé they could humiliate over dinner. I was the guy who knew where every penny came from, and I was done letting them treat me like I didn't matter. But what I didn't know was that Chloe wasn't the only one plotting. Her sister, her parents, they were already coming for more than my pride. They were coming for my reputation, and I was about to find out the hard way. 3 days after I pulled my money from the wedding account, the Hawthorne family went to war. It started with an email from Lauren, Chloe's mother. She found my work email somehow, which I'd never shared with her, and wrote a message that read more like a courtroom monologue than a mother's concern. "Justin, Chloe is distraught. While we expressed minor reservations, your reaction has been disproportionate and cruel. You have taken funds earmarked for wedding deposits. Chloe is now in a terrible position. As a gentleman, you should rectify this oversight at once." An oversight? As if I'd accidentally tripped and stolen $25,000 while on my way to grab milk. I reread that line as a gentleman, and something inside me snapped. Because to them, being a gentleman meant being passive, quiet, willing to absorb insult after insult so they could keep feeling superior. I typed one line back, CC'd Chloe. "Lauren, Chloe canceled the wedding venue before informing me she wanted a break. The funds were for a wedding that no longer exists. I reclaimed my portion. Chloe has her full contribution. Matter closed." I hit send, sat back in my chair. For the first time in weeks, I felt still. But the storm was just picking up. By Saturday, my phone was lighting up with voicemails, emails, and blocked number calls. Chloe now claimed she had used her personal accounts to pay vendors in good faith dress alterations, deposits for a cake, florist, photographer, all assuming the wedding would proceed. She sent me a PDF spreadsheet color-coded and labeled like it came from a junior accountant, claiming I now owed her over $21,000. As I scanned the document, something jumped out. Several of the deposit dates were after she had already canceled the venue. After she'd left the ring on my counter, after she walked out of our apartment, she was trying to manufacture a paper trail to justify squeezing more money out of me. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded everything to my lawyer, who confirmed exactly what I suspected: none of those payments were my responsibility. She had canceled the core agreement, everything else was her mess, and she was getting desperate. The next day, Vanessa slid into my LinkedIn DMs. "Yes, LinkedIn. Justin. Fix this now. Chloe's a wreck. My parents are furious. You're being ridiculous. Give her the money back and stop acting like a jerk. It's just money. God knows you could use it more than she could. It's just money." Funny how people born into wealth always say that. I stared at the message, jaw clenched, and thought about how many engines I'd torn down in 95-degree heat to save that just money. How many late nights I'd pulled under flickering garage lights. How I'd said no to vacations, dinners, sleep just to build something real. But none of that mattered to them, because they were never going to see me as anything more than a stepping stone Chloe should have stepped over. On Tuesday, I got a call at my shop. My mechanic, Daryl, poked his head into the office. "Boss, there's an angry guy on line 1. Says he's your almost father-in-law." I sighed and picked up. Edward didn't waste time. "Justin, this has gone far enough. You've made your point. Chloe is upset. Let's be reasonable." I kept my voice calm. "I'm not sure what you expect me to do." "Edward, you know exactly what I mean. The money. Return it, and we can all move forward. Forward to what your daughter canceled our wedding. Left a note. And now your family's trying to guilt me into funding the fallout. She was under pressure. Weddings are stressful, but you're punishing her financially. That's beneath you." I laughed. "No, Edward. What's beneath me is being used. We have options," he said coldly. "Legal options. Go for it," I said. "Document everything. So have I." And I hung up. But their attacks were evolving. They stopped going after me directly. They started going after my circle. Matt called me Wednesday morning. "Dude, your ex's sister just called my job." "What?" "She found me through your business Facebook page. Asked if I'd ever seen you being financially controlling or unstable." "You're kidding." "Nope." I told her to eat dirt. Then I hung up. I didn't even know how she found his number. But she didn't stop there. 2 other friends of mine reached out later that day. One said Vanessa had tried digging into whether I'd ever been abusive with money. The other stayed on the phone long enough to tell her to take a hike and reminded her that slander has consequences. Then came the clients. One of my regulars, Dan, fleet manager for a delivery company, called me directly. "Hey, Justin. Weird call today. Some woman claiming to be your ex's mother said I should reconsider working with you. Said you were in legal trouble. What the hell is going on?" I explained everything in 10 minutes flat. Dan chuckled. "Well, they picked the wrong guy. Just approved your contract to service 3 more vans. If someone's working that hard to ruin you, you must be doing something right." That sentence, it stuck with me, because it was the opposite of everything the Hawthorns believed. In their world, money meant virtue. Power meant moral authority. And anyone without either disposable. But in my world, loyalty, truth, and integrity still mattered. At this point, I was keeping a file, printed everything, screenshots, emails, voicemails, dated and cataloged. I knew where this was going. The threats were ramping up. And if they were petty enough to smear me to my friends and clients, they were petty enough to try something bigger. That's when I went to see my lawyer again. He took one look at the timeline, the contracts, and the banking history and said, "You're clean. You withdrew your own money. She canceled the wedding. Any debts she incurred afterward are her burden. She's pushing you to fold. Don't." I nodded, exhaled, and felt something in my chest loosen. Not relief, exactly, but clarity. That night, I walked back into the garage behind my shop, opened up my dad's old metal toolbox again. Hunter followed and curled up in the corner like he always did. I sat down at my workbench, opened my shop laptop, and pulled up QuickBooks, invoices, expenses, payroll, every number in black and white. No smoke, no mirrors, just cold, hard facts. I watched the numbers add up, the kind of proof no Hawthorne could deny. And as I sat there, watching the screen glow in the dim light, I realized they weren't afraid of the money I took. They were afraid of the power I'd taken back. But I didn't know yet. They weren't finished. They had one more play up their sleeve, and it was coming straight from my parents and my name. The final straw came on a Sunday morning. I was sipping my coffee in the garage office, going over some service requests, when my mom called. Her voice was calm, but there was a tightness under it, like a wire pulled too far. "Lauren called me," she said. She said Chloe's in distress, that you've taken things too far. I told her Chloe made a choice, and now she's living with it. I froze. "You okay?" I asked. "I'm fine," she said. "But son, they're trying to make you look like the villain. Stay smart." She hung up. I stood there a few seconds, heart thudding. Not because of what Lauren said, but because my parents were now targets. People who had nothing to do with any of this. It wasn't about love anymore, or even money. This was about control. That night, I took Hunter for a walk. Cool Cleveland air. Sidewalks wet from earlier rain. His nails clicked against the pavement while I kept one hand in my jacket pocket, the other on his leash. I passed the old corner store where Chloe once picked out chips for a movie night we never had because she got a better offer from Vanessa. Funny what your memory holds on to. When we got home, I opened my laptop and started building the full timeline, every receipt, every canceled vendor, every message I'd logged since the moment things went sideways. Because I knew what was coming next. And I wasn't just going to defend myself, I was going to win. 3 days later, I got the letter. A real one. Cream envelope. Gold-stamped return address from some firm in Manhattan. It was from Edward's lawyer. It accused me of misappropriating joint marital funds. We weren't married. Of causing emotional distress through abandonment. She left me. Of breach of promise to marry. Which, again, she broke. It demanded I return the $25,000 I withdrew, plus $15,000 in damages and vendor costs. $40,000. I stared at the paper, not angry, just amazed. Because it wasn't about the money. It was about pride. They couldn't believe I'd walked away without asking for their approval, without begging for a second chance, without folding like they assumed I would. But here's the twist. Their own lawyer didn't believe it either. My attorney sent back a 2-page response with timestamps, bank records, screenshots, and one final sentence that felt like poetry. Our client acted lawfully, responsibly, and in response to unilateral contract nullification. Any future threats will be documented and responded to accordingly. We never heard from that lawyer again. And I imagine Edward wasn't too thrilled about wasting a few $1,000 to find out he couldn't buy his way through this one. Meanwhile, Chloe was unraveling online. She started vague booking. Instagram captions like, "Picking up the pieces." Betrayal is a lesson, not a failure. Some people only love you when it's easy. Amelia, her best friend, was in the comments with all the usual suspects. "He never appreciated you. You deserve someone who shows up." I didn't respond, but it did tell me one thing. They weren't expecting silence. They were expecting a war, a meltdown. Something they could point to and say, "See, he's unstable." But I didn't play their game. I just kept running my shop, training my team, taking Hunter to the park, and stacking every piece of evidence into a neat little folder labeled "just in case." A week later, Chloe sent me an itemized list of demands. She wanted the shared items from our apartment fair. Then she listed things like my sound system bought before we even met, my vintage car parts worth thousands, and tools that had belonged to my dad. She even had the nerve to include kitchen appliances that my relatives had sent as wedding shower gifts. Then came the big one. A list of wedding expenses she said she covered from personal funds and expected me to reimburse half of. At the bottom, a demand I pay half of the non-refundable $10K venue deposit. The same one she canceled without telling me. The same one that already cost me my $5K share. So now she wanted another $5K so she could be whole, and I'd be the one out $10K. I scrolled through the email, jaw clenched. This wasn't logic. It was entitlement math. Matt came by the garage that night, dropping off burgers. We sat on the concrete loading dock, eating under the yellow glow of the outdoor lamp. Hunter chased a squeaky toy around the lot. "She wants more money," Matt asked, mouth half full. "After everything." "Yeah, she canceled the wedding." "Yep." "Then she can kiss that spreadsheet goodbye." I laughed for the first time in days. That's not the worst part. I said, "They've been calling clients, reaching out to friends, trying to build a case I'm financially controlling." Matt stared at me, the wrapper in his lap. "Bro, you're the most boring, transparent person I know. You file your taxes early. You send thank you notes. They're not looking for truth. They're looking for narrative. Well, then build yours better." He was right. I didn't need to argue. I just needed to document, prepare, and let their desperation write its own story. That weekend, I sat in the garage again. Toolbox open. Same creaky hinge. Same rusty hammer with my dad's initials. I laid out a copy of the letter from Edward's lawyer. Next to it, Chloe's expense spreadsheet, then bank records, vendor timelines, and one printed email from the venue confirming the cancellation date. I underlined it in red. 2 days before the note. They thought I was a grease monkey, a disposable guy who wouldn't fight back. But I had something more powerful than any of their family connections. Receipts. The next move was theirs, and they made it loud. The reputation attack had failed. The legal threat had fizzled, so they tried something even more pathetic. Chloe came back, and what she brought with her wasn't an apology. It was a trap. It was a Tuesday evening when she walked into the garage. The sun had already dipped below the Cleveland skyline, and the shop was quiet, just the soft ticking of cooling engines and the occasional thud of Hunter's tail hitting the wall as he dozed by the heater. Then the bell over the front door chimed. I looked up, and there she was. Chloe, hair perfectly styled, designer coat. That signature perfume, lavender and citrus, hit me before her voice did. I stood frozen behind the counter. Grease-streaked hands, work boots dusted with sawdust from the corner shelf I'd been building. And yet, somehow, I didn't feel small. Not anymore. She offered a soft smile. "Hey." Hunter immediately stood up, ears perked, moving slowly between us. He didn't growl, but he didn't wag his tail either. He just stood there, guarding. Smart dog. I thought you blocked me, she said, eyes scanning the garage like it was unfamiliar. I did, I replied. So how'd you find me? Amelia. Of course. I didn't say anything. Just let the silence stretch. Long enough that she shifted uncomfortably in those $1,000 heels. Then she launched in. Justin, I made a mistake. A huge one. Listening to my family, especially Vanessa. She got in my head and she trailed off, waiting for me to jump in. I didn't. She tried again. I'm back living with my parents, in my childhood bedroom. Everything's a mess. The vendors are harassing me for payment. My credit cards are maxed out. And Richard. She stopped, biting her lip. Ah, yes. Richard. The surgeon her sister introduced her to right after she dumped me. I raised an eyebrow. He wasn't who we thought, she admitted. Who you thought, I corrected. He scammed my dad, took over $500,000, vanished. And now everyone's blaming everyone else. I told Vanessa this was her fault, and we're not speaking. Still, I said nothing, because I'd learned that silence speaks louder than rage. Chloe's face fell. The soft edges dropped. Her voice hardened. You don't care, do you? I crossed my arms. You're not here because you love me. You're here because Plan B blew up in your face. Now you're circling back to the one guy who always picked up the pieces. That's not fair, she snapped. No, I said. What wasn't fair was canceling our wedding behind my back, leaving a note and calling me worthless before running off with someone you barely knew. Her eyes welled up. I was scared, she whispered. I didn't know what I wanted. I listened to them. I thought you wouldn't fight for me. I did fight, I said quietly, just not the way you expected. I fought by walking away, by protecting myself. She stepped forward. Can we try again? And for a split second, I saw the girl I'd proposed to. The one who smiled when I picked her up in a truck. The one who said she loved how I smelled like work. But that girl was gone. She'd been gone long before she left the note. I shook my head. No. Chloe's jaw dropped. What do you mean, no? I mean no. We're not getting back together. There is no us. Not now. Not ever. The tears came then. Real or not? I couldn't tell. I didn't have the bandwidth to analyze them. She sniffled. So you're just going to let me fall apart after everything we had? You didn't fall apart, I said. You built this. Every lie, every manipulation, every vendor you booked after canceling the venue, every voicemail you had your mom leave, every message Vanessa sent to my friends. I took a breath, steady and cold. You were never looking for a partner. You were looking for a bailout. Her eyes narrowed. There's someone else, isn't there? I stared at her, not answering. She took that as confirmation. Well, good luck. She'll eventually see what I saw. A grease monkey who thinks he's a king because he can fix a carburetor. I smiled, and that was what broke her. Enjoy your little garage, she hissed, turning for the door. One day you'll regret this. Hunter didn't move until she was gone. Then he exhaled and returned to his spot by the heater. The next day, Vanessa showed up at the coffee shop I frequent. Walked straight up to my table like she owned the place. Designer bag, sunglasses she didn't need indoors, lips tight with fury. You think this is over? I didn't look up from my laptop. It is for me. She's broke, crying every night. You crushed her. She crushed herself. She loved you. She loved what I could provide. And when it wasn't enough, she left. Vanessa leaned in. Well, now she's crawling back. And you're acting like some savior. I finally met her gaze. No, I'm not saving anyone anymore. I'm just not volunteering to be used. She scoffed. You're still bitter. I sipped my coffee. Better bitter than bankrupt. Vanessa's eyes flashed. Just remember you had your shot. Now you're just a guy with a wrench and a dog. I smiled again. I'll take that over being part of your family. She left mid-eye roll, and I stayed calm, focused. Because the truth, I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. And walking away, that was my victory. But fate wasn't done. Because a week later, something happened that neither Chloe nor I saw coming. And it didn't just destroy her next plan. It burned her entire world down. It was nearly 5 months since Chloe walked out of my life, and about 7 since everything started falling apart. The anger that had once burned through me had cooled into something quieter, something stronger. Peace. But peace doesn't come without price. Chloe was struggling. I heard from Amelia once at the grocery store an awkward half-apology about hearing only one side and seeing things differently now. I didn't reply. Word got around that she had moved back in with her parents, back to that gilded cage in Hudson Valley. That childhood bedroom she never really left until I came along. Money problems piled up. Credit cards maxed. Vendors still chasing her for canceled orders and no-shows. And then, the bombshell. Richard, that surgeon her sister introduced her to. The one who promised the moon and the stars. He wasn't a surgeon. He wasn't even real. He was a con artist. He tricked her dad into investing hundreds of thousands into some fake medical startup, then vanished. I couldn't help but laugh. It was poetic justice. Karma had a wicked sense of humor. The fallout was nuclear. At Edward's birthday dinner, Chloe called Vanessa a toxic snake in front of the entire family. They weren't speaking. Vanessa wasn't allowed at family events anymore. And I was finally out of the crossfire. One afternoon, Matt and I were tossing a ball in my backyard. Hunter chased after it with reckless joy. Almost makes me feel bad for her. Matt said, tossing the ball again. Almost, I agreed. They thought you weren't good enough, he said. And then she got taken for $500,000 by some fraud. I finished. Sometimes, Matt said. The best revenge is just getting out of the way and letting karma do its thing. I was finishing up some work in the shop when the bell chimed. Hunter perked up, ears twitching. Chloe stood in the doorway. Thinner, haggard, still impeccably dressed. I swallowed the surprise. I want to talk, she said. I nodded slowly. 5 minutes, I said. Hunter didn't move from his bed. He watched her carefully, like a loyal guard. She started with the tears. I made mistakes, she said. Listening to Vanessa. Losing sight of us. Of you. She looked around the shop like it was foreign territory. I'm living in my childhood room. My family's a mess. I miss you. I listened. But my heart was quiet, empty. Because years ago, I realized this wasn't about us. It was never about us. When she finished, I looked her in the eye. No, I said. Know what she whispered? No more chances. No more us. Not after everything. Her face fell. She asked if I had moved on. I told her my life was none of her concern anymore. She said I was cruel. I told her I wasn't. That she came crawling back because her backup plan failed. That I wasn't it. She left angry, warning me I'd regret this. Said I'd be alone with my little garage. I smiled. And that night, I texted Matt. You won't believe who showed up today. His reply. Princess Entitlement herself? Wants to try again. Hell no. I put the $25,000 back where it belonged into my savings. The ring, locked in a safe deposit box. Maybe someday I'll sell it. Or maybe it'll stay. A $12,000 reminder that I'm enough. Hunter and I moved closer to the shop. Smaller place. More quiet. Dog park nearby. Life isn't a fairy tale. Sometimes the princess wants the royal treasury. And sometimes the worthless guy walks away with his dignity and his savings. But just as I thought the story was over, I got a call from someone I never expected. And what they said would change everything again. The call came on a gray Thursday morning. Just as I was opening the shop, the voice on the other end was unfamiliar. Calm, professional, with just a hint of urgency. "Mr. Davies, this is Mike Lawson, attorney representing some interests connected to Chloe Hawthorne." I tightened my grip on the phone. I'd been through every legal twist they'd thrown at me before. But something about Mike's tone made me pause. He explained. Chloe and her family suffered significant financial losses following a fraudulent investment tied to a man named Richard, the surgeon she was involved with. I already knew the story. What I didn't expect was Mike's next words. The Hawthorne family is still trying to recover the money and is investigating further. They've asked me to inform you that any future interactions or claims should go through legal channels. A polite warning, a veiled threat. I hung up and stared at my hands. The tools, the grease stains, the worn leather of my work boots. They thought this was the end. But it was just the beginning of a new chapter. That night, I sat alone in the garage. Hunter curled beside me, head resting on my knee. I pulled out the old toolbox, my dad's, ran my fingers over the dents and scratches, each one a story of hard work, sacrifice, and pride. I looked at the ring again, locked away in a safe deposit box downtown. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry. It was a symbol of everything I'd lost, of everything I'd gained. I thought about Chloe, her dreams of luxury and status, shattered by the very people who told her what she deserved. I thought about Vanessa, her smug messages, her judgment, her attempts to control a story that had slipped through her fingers. And I thought about myself, the grease monkey they never thought would rise. Because here's the truth. You don't get to decide someone's worth based on their bank account. You don't get to break hearts and expect no consequences. You don't get to tear down someone's dignity and call it protection. I'm not a hero. I'm not a victim. I'm just a man who learned his value and stood his ground. If there's one lesson I want you to take away from this, it's this: self-respect isn't given. It's earned. And sometimes, earned the hard way. So, to anyone watching who's been told they're not enough, who's been looked down on, shut out, or made to feel small, know this: you are enough. You always were. And walking away, sometimes that's the bravest, strongest thing you can do. Hunter nudged my hand. I smiled. We were ready for whatever came next. If this story hit home, if you've ever had to fight for your dignity, drop A in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Because sometimes, the strongest stories are the ones we don't hear enough. Thanks for watching.